My parents didn't come to the ceremony where I received the Congressional Gold Medal, so I stood there alone, and the calls started flooding in. 5 minutes before I walked out to meet the Speaker of the House, my mother texted to say they were too exhausted from my brother's engagement party to make the flight, claiming it was just an award thing. Anyway, they thought I was getting some kind of volunteer recognition plaque, unaware I was about to receive the Congressional Gold Medal, the highest civilian honor Congress can bestow. They also didn't know the man who had convinced them to skip my ceremony would soon be exposed for what he truly was. I accepted the medal alone. My name is Maya Sterling. I am 28 years old, and for the last 10 minutes I have been staring at my reflection in the full-length mirror of the holding room at the United States Capitol Visitor Center. The woman looking back at me seems older than I remember, likely due to the formal navy dress that hangs from my shoulders like ceremonial armor. It is not just fabric. It feels like the weight of every sleepless night, every sacrifice, every mission I undertook in places whose names I cannot speak aloud. The air conditioning in the room is set to 62 degrees, a temperature designed to keep dignitaries comfortable and speeches crisp, but I feel a different kind of chill settling into the marrow of my bones. The room is silent except for the low hum of the ventilation system and the aggressive insect-like buzzing of my phone against the marble side table. It has been vibrating for the last 4 minutes. I should not look. I know I should not look. A wiser version of myself, perhaps the version that existed before the last 48 hours, would have left the device in my locker, disconnected from the world outside this sanctuary of history. But the daughter in me, the part of my brain that still craves the dopamine hit of validation from people who have never understood me, reaches out. My hand hovers over the screen. I tell myself I am looking for a congratulations text. I tell myself I am looking for a message, saying they landed early, that they are rushing through security, that they might be late, but they are coming. I pick it up. The screen illuminates my face with a harsh, artificial light. There are no missed calls. There are no frantic texts about traffic or flight delays. There is only a notification from the family group chat, a digital space pretentiously titled The Sterling Standard. I unlock the phone. The first thing I see is a photograph. It is high resolution, bright, and sickeningly cheerful. It was taken in landscape mode, capturing the panoramic view of the Malibu Beach Club. The ocean behind them is a perfect filtered turquoise. In the foreground, 4 people are crowded around a table laden with what looks like $1,000 worth of sushi and bottles of vintage sake. There is my younger brother, Marcus. He is glowing, his skin bronzed, his smile wide and victorious. He is wearing a designer polo that likely cost more than my first month's rent. Next to him is Vanessa Chen, his new fiancée, the woman with the tech startup money and the smile that never quite reaches her eyes. She is holding a magnum of champagne like a trophy. And flanking them, looking happier than I have seen them in 20 years, are my parents, David and Christine Sterling. My father is wearing a linen blazer that costs more than my deployment stipend, holding a crystal glass. My mother is laughing at something Vanessa has evidently just said, her hand resting possessively on her future daughter-in-law's shoulder. They look like a spread in a lifestyle magazine. They look like people without a care in the world. Then comes the text message. It is not in the group chat. It is a direct message from my mother sent 2 minutes ago. I read it once. Then I read it again. I feel the blood drain from my face, leaving me cold. The message reads, "Don't wait at the airport. We're too tired from the engagement festivities to make the flight. Vanessa treated us to a full wellness day at the club to help us recover. It's too good to pass up. Besides, we figured it's just an award thing anyway. We'll celebrate when you visit for Christmas. Love, Mom." I stare at the words until they blur. Just an award thing. 8 years. It has been 8 years since I enlisted in the military. 8 years of missing holidays to serve overseas. 5 years of working in special operations units, whose names remain classified. 3 years of leading missions that saved hundreds of lives in places the news never mentioned. 6 months of congressional hearings, where my actions were reviewed by the highest offices in the land. To them, this is a participation trophy. To them, I am collecting a ribbon for showing up. They think I am receiving a certificate. They think I am picking up a plaque. They do not know that in exactly 8 minutes, I am about to receive the Congressional Gold Medal in the rotunda of the United States Capitol. They do not know that the Speaker of the House will place this medal in my hands, while senators and representatives watch. They chose a wellness day. I do not know how much a spa package at the Malibu Beach Club costs. Maybe $500 a person. Maybe $800. That is the price tag they put on the defining moment of my life. They weighed my achievement against a hot stone massage and a glass of free cucumber water. And I lost. My thumb hovers over the keyboard. I want to scream at her. I want to type out a paragraph detailing exactly what a Congressional Gold Medal means. I want to tell her that this is the same honor given to George Washington, to Rosa Parks, to the astronauts who walked on the moon. I want to tell her that senators are sitting in the other room waiting for me. I want to tell her that Vanessa, their golden ticket, is a fraud. Though at this moment that is only a suspicion in the back of my analytical mind, a gut feeling I have ignored for the sake of peace. But I do not. If I argue, I validate their ignorance. If I beg, I confirm that I am still the child begging for scraps from their table. I type 2 words, rest well. I press send. I watch the small status indicator change from sent to delivered. I do not wait for it to change to read. I hold the power button on the side of my phone. The screen goes black. The buzzing stops. The connection is severed. I slide the phone into the deep pocket of my dress. It feels heavy, like a stone. But as I let go of it, I feel a strange cold lightness spreading through my chest. It is the feeling of a tether snapping. There is a sharp knock on the heavy oak door. It opens before I can answer, and a woman steps in. It is Congressional Liaison Officer Patricia Vance. She is a tall woman with sharp features and eyes that usually scan a room for protocol violations. She has been assigned to coordinate my ceremony. She pauses at the door, her posture shifting instantly from casual to formal attention. She looks at me not as Maya, the woman who was just rejected by her mother via text message, but as the entity I am about to become. "All set, Ms. Sterling?" she asks. The title hangs in the air. Ms. Sterling. My father calls me kiddo when he wants something, or the soldier when he is mocking my career choices to his golf buddies. My mother calls me honey, in a tone that suggests she pities my lack of a husband. Neither of them has ever used a word that implies respect. Officer Vance does not know me. To her, I am the honoree, and in this moment, her professional deference feels more like love than anything I have received from my own bloodline in 3 decades. "I am ready," I say. My voice surprises me. It is steady. It is an octave lower than usual. It is not the voice of a daughter. "The speaker is waiting," she says, holding the door open. And the rotunda is full. Standing room only. I nod and step past her into the hallway. The floor is polished to a mirror shine. The click of my heels echoes sharply against the marble walls. We walk in silence. Every step takes me further away from the beach club in California and closer to history. The corridor is lined with portraits of past medal recipients. Serious faces, legendary names, historic figures. I am walking into their ranks. I am 28, female, and alone. But I am walking into their ranks. We reach the double doors of the Capitol Rotunda. I can hear the murmur of the crowd on the other side. It sounds like the ocean, a low, rolling roar of hundreds of conversations. Officer Vance puts her hand on the brass handle. She looks at me one last time. "Showtime," she whispers. She pulls the door open. The usher's voice booms out, cutting through the noise. "Ladies and gentlemen, please rise for our honoree." The sound of 400 people standing up simultaneously is like a sudden gust of wind. Chairs scrape against the floor. Fabric rustles. The murmur dies instantly, replaced by a profound, expectant silence. I walk in. The room is magnificent. The ceiling soars above me, painted with historic murals, the dome stretching toward the heavens. The walls are adorned with statues of presidents and pioneers. The American flag hangs enormous behind the podium, but I do not look at the architecture. I look at the people. The rotunda is packed. There are generals I have served under. There are senators and representatives who reviewed my case, local politicians, the Secretary of Defense, and reporters with their cameras positioned in the designated media box. There are soldiers I served with looking at me with a mixture of pride and solidarity. And then I see the front row. It is the prime real estate of the ceremony, directly in front of the podium, closer than anyone else. There are 4 seats separated from the rest of the gallery by a velvet rope. On each seat, there is a piece of heavy cream cardstock printed with elegant black lettering, reserved for family. They are empty. The emptiness is violent. In a room where people are shoulder to shoulder, standing against the back wall, craning their necks to see, those 4 empty chairs scream. They are a void, a black hole in the middle of my triumph. I can feel the eyes of the room shifting. They look at me, then they look at the empty seats, then they look back at me. I see a reporter from the Washington Post lean over and whisper something to his photographer. The photographer adjusts his lens, zooming in. I know exactly what picture will run on the front page tomorrow. It will not be my face. It will be the gap in the front row. For a second, just one singular second, I feel like I might collapse. The humiliation is physical. It burns in my throat. I imagine the whispers. Where are her parents? Does she have no one? Is she estranged? What is wrong with her family? I falter in my step. My hand grips the fabric of my dress. Then I think of the photo. I think of the champagne. I think of the wellness day. I think of Vanessa's smug smile and my father's designer blazer. They are not missing this because of a tragedy. They are missing this because they simply did not think it mattered enough to get on a plane. The shame evaporates. It is replaced by something colder, harder, and infinitely more useful. I do not need them. I have never needed them. I joined the military on my own. I trained myself through boot camp and special operations selection. I stayed awake for 72 hours straight to complete missions that saved lives. I sat through the congressional hearings alone. I testified before the Armed Services Committee alone. I am not a victim of their neglect. I am a survivor of it. I lift my chin. I lock my expression into a mask of absolute impenetrable calm. I look directly at the photographer, and I do not blink. Take the picture, I think. Let the world see exactly who they are. I continue walking. I bypass the press section and ascend the 3 steps to the podium. The Speaker of the House, an 65-year-old man who has presided over countless ceremonies, is waiting for me holding the medal case. He looks at the empty seats, then looks at me. His eyes soften with a momentary grandfatherly concern. "Are we waiting for anyone, Maya?" he asks quietly off the microphone. I look him in the eye. "No, Mr. Speaker," I say. "We are all present." He nods, understanding. He opens the case. Inside, resting on a bed of velvet, is the Congressional Gold Medal. It gleams under the lights of the rotunda, heavy with the weight of history. It is custom designed, as all Congressional Gold Medals are. On one side is my likeness surrounded by olive branches. On the other, a depiction of the mission that brought me here, the night I led my team into an impossible situation and brought every single one of them home while saving 47 civilian lives. I look out at the 400 strangers who showed up when my own blood did not. I am alone. Yes, but as the Speaker lifts the medal from its case, I realize that being alone means there is no one to hold me back. I am Maya Sterling, and I am honored by my nation. To understand why I stood alone in that rotunda, you have to understand the economics of the Sterling household in Pacific Palisades, California. We were not poor, but we were terrified of being ordinary. My father, David, viewed our family not as a biological unit, but as a small portfolio of assets that needed to be managed for maximum social return. And like any portfolio manager, he categorized his holdings early. I was the bond, safe, boring, reliable. I would serve my country, collect a modest pension, and never embarrass anyone at a dinner party. I did not require attention. Marcus, my brother, was the speculative stock. He was charming and high maintenance, but if he married well, the returns would be astronomical. The strategy was simple. I was expected to serve. Marcus was expected to marry. I remember the day I received my acceptance letter to the United States Military Academy at West Point. It was a Thursday in late March. The afternoon sun was cutting through the blinds in our kitchen, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. I had run all the way from the mailbox, my heart hammering against my ribs, clutching the thick envelope that confirmed I was not just capable, but exceptional. I had been offered a full appointment. I slapped the letter onto the granite countertop where my mother Christine was arranging flowers for a charity luncheon. I got in, I said, breathless. West Point, full appointment. My mother paused. She wiped her hands on a dish towel and picked up the letter. She read it with the same level of enthusiasm one might give to a utility bill. She did not smile. She pursed her lips. A gesture I had learned to interpret as mild disapproval masked as concern. "That is a lot of years of service, Maya," she said, sliding the letter back to me. 4 years of school, then 5 years minimum commitment. You will be 27 when you get out, if you even survive. That is getting up there. "It is West Point, Mom," I said, my excitement faltering. "It is a career. A prestigious one. Only 12% of applicants get in." I know, she sighed, returning to her flowers. "But be careful. Men do not like women who are stronger than them. You get too tough. You intimidate people. You might find yourself very accomplished and very lonely. Just do not let the training ruin your femininity. Muscle definition is not flattering in a bridesmaid dress." That evening when my father came home, the dynamic was reinforced. He looked at the acceptance letter, nodded once, and said, "Good. That saves us tuition. You can handle the uniforms and personal expenses yourself, right? You have that babysitting money saved up." "Yes," I said. "I have enough." "Good girl," he said, already turning away. "Maya can always handle herself. We need to focus our resources where they are needed." Resources meant Marcus. While I was waking up at 5 a.m. for basic training, my parents were funneling thousands into Marcus. It was an investment strategy. They paid for his teeth to be straightened with invisible aligners because crooked teeth were too middle class. They paid for a personal stylist because he needed to look successful, not try hard. They paid for him to attend a mediocre business school that was known less for its academics and more for the net worth of its alumni network. When I questioned it once during a rare moment of anger over my equipment costs, my father looked at me with genuine confusion. "It is networking, Maya," he explained, as if I were a slow child. "You are building a career. Marcus is building connections. His overhead is higher. If he lands a woman with real money, the ROI, return on investment, covers us all. You will do fine." But Marcus could elevate this family. The divide became a canyon during holiday dinners. These were mandatory events where we were expected to perform the role of a happy family. I would sit there exhausted from combat training or fresh off a deployment, listening to Marcus recount his week. His stories were always about parties, weekend trips to wine country, or which heiress was showing interest. My parents hung on every word. They analyzed his potential matches like they were vetting mergers and acquisitions. "What about the girl from the venture capital family?" my mother would ask, her fork hovering in the air. "The one with the last name Chen." "She is okay," Marcus would say, picking at his steak. "But she is intense, very focused on her startup. Could be a good challenge, though. Her family is worth 9 figures. Her father was on the cover of Forbes twice. Next level," my father would grunt. "Tech money ages well. Good last name, too." Then they would turn to me almost as an afterthought. "How is the military?" my mother would ask. "I just got back from a classified deployment," I said one evening, feeling a surge of pride I could not suppress. I led my first solo mission. Everyone came home safe. The objective was accomplished. I cannot tell you where or what, but it mattered. The table went silent. My father chewed his filet mignon thoughtfully. "That sounds dangerous," he said. "I hope you are being careful." "It is service, Dad." Sure, admirable," he said, waving his fork. "But do not let it make you hard, Maya. Nobody likes a woman who has seen too much. You get a certain look in your eyes. It makes people uncomfortable, even if you are a hero." Before I could defend myself, Marcus gasped. He held up his phone. "Oh my God," he announced. "Vanessa just texted me. Vanessa Chen." The atmosphere in the room shifted instantly. It was electric. My mission accomplishment evaporated like steam. "Chen?" my father asked, sitting up straighter. "As in Chen Dynamics, the AI startup." "Yes," Marcus beamed. "She wants to get dinner on Tuesday. That is serious, right?" "That is very serious." My mother breathed, her eyes wide. Wear the new blazer, the one we bought at Neiman's. I will book you a haircut for Monday. I have a debriefing on Wednesday, I said quietly. I was going to ask if I could call home, maybe catch up. Maya, please, my mother snapped, not looking at me. This is Vanessa Chen. Do not be selfish. This could be it. Vanessa was the endgame. When she eventually started coming around, she was treated not as a guest, but as a visiting queen. She was 5 years older than Marcus, ran a successful AI company, and drove a car that cost more than my annual salary. She was polished, opinionated, and treated service workers with a casual disdain that made my skin crawl. But to David and Christine, she was a goddess. She would sit at our table drinking my father's best wine and talk about valuations and market disruptions. My father would nod along, repeating the buzzwords, desperate to sound like he belonged in the conversation. You know, David, Vanessa said once, leaning back in her chair, you have got a capable family here. My father beamed, looking at Marcus. No. Vanessa laughed, pointing her glass at me. The soldier. Disciplined. I bet she is lethal in a boardroom, too. I looked up, surprised. It was the first time she had acknowledged me as a person and not furniture. My father's smile faltered. He looked at me, then back at Vanessa, terrified that my military demeanor might spoil the deal. Maya is efficient, my father said quickly. She has got the service record. But Marcus has the vision. The sentence hung in the air. Maya has service. Marcus has vision. It was a complete summary of my existence in their eyes. My achievements were sacrifices. They were badges on a uniform, static, finite. But Marcus was potential energy. Marcus was the lottery ticket they were still scratching. I stopped talking about my missions after that. I stopped trying to explain the complexity of the operations I was running or the lives I was saving. I realized that to them, my career was a duty that built character, while Marcus's dating life was the family business, the final break. The moment I truly understood that I was walking this path alone happened 2 years after I completed my mandatory service commitment. I was 26. I had been promoted to lead a special operations unit, a role that required my complete focus and dedication. I had been selected for a mission that would later be described in classified briefings as one of the most successful hostage rescues in a decade. I was nervous. I wanted someone in my corner. I called my mother on a Sunday afternoon. Mom, I said, the recognition ceremony is on Tuesday. At the Pentagon. They are giving me the Distinguished Service Medal. It is open to family. I was hoping you and Dad could come. It would mean a lot to look back and see you there. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. I could hear the rustle of fabric in the background. Tuesday, she asked. Oh, Maya, we cannot. Why? I asked. Dad is retired. You are free. It is a 2-hour flight. It is Marcus's engagement photo shoot, she said, her voice tight with stress. The photographer is flying in from New York. We have to be there to make sure the lighting is perfect. If the shadows are wrong, the announcement will be ruined. Mom, it is a photo shoot. You have seen Marcus 100 times. This is a medal ceremony. This is recognition from the Secretary of Defense. Do not be dramatic, she chided. The engagement is in 3 months. This is crunch time. Vanessa's mother is going to be there, and we need to present a united front. We need to look like we belong in their world. I am asking you to come watch me be recognized for something that matters, I said, my voice shaking. And we are supporting your brother, she shot back. Why do you always have to make it a competition? You have your medals. You are fine. You are always fine. Marcus needs us. I need you too, I whispered. We will come to the next one, she said dismissively. When things settle down, just do a good job. Make sure you wear some lipstick. You look washed out in those dress uniforms. She hung up. I sat in my small apartment surrounded by mission briefs and after-action reports. I looked at the empty chair across from me. That Tuesday, I walked into the Pentagon. I stood at attention. I was sharp. I was composed, and I was honored. I did not wear lipstick. I wore my dress uniform, and an expression that conveyed the gravity of my service. I received the medal. When the ceremony ended, I did not call them. I went to a bar near my apartment alone, ordered a whiskey, and toasted myself in the mirror behind the bar. My father was right, in a way. I could handle myself, but he was wrong about the reason. It was not because I was naturally tough. It was because they had trained me through years of neglect and dismissal to realize that if I wanted recognition, I would have to honor myself. They placed their bets on Marcus and Vanessa Chen. They bought shares in a company that was built on hype and manipulation. They did not realize that the steady, boring soldier they had ignored was quietly accumulating medals, commendations, and the respect of the most powerful people in the nation. And now, years later, the market was about to correct itself. The call that changed my life came on a Wednesday afternoon at 3 p.m. The sun was hitting the glass of my office window at the Pentagon, creating a glare that made me squint. But I did not move to close the blinds. I was frozen. On the other end of the line was a congressional aide. The voice was calm, bureaucratic, and heavy with history. They told me that a bipartisan group of lawmakers had introduced legislation to award me the Congressional Gold Medal, and it had passed both chambers unanimously. The president had signed the bill that morning. I remember thanking her. I remember hanging up the phone and staring at my hands. They were trembling, not a subtle tremor, but a violent shaking that made my knuckles knock against the polished wood of my desk. This was it. This was the summit. In civilian honors, there is no higher recognition. The Congressional Gold Medal is given to those who have performed an achievement that has an impact on American history and culture. I was being handed the same honor given to George Washington. I was 27 years old at the time of the call, and I had just been told that my name would be written into the history books alongside Rosa Parks, the Tuskegee Airmen, and the Apollo 11 astronauts. The silence in my office felt too big. It felt like a pressure chamber. I needed to release it. I needed to tell someone who would understand that the little girl who practiced marksmanship in her backyard had finally made it to the mountaintop. I picked up my phone again. My thumb hovered over the contact list. I should have called my commanding officer. I should have called my best friend from the academy. I should have called the sergeant who mentored me through my first deployment. But the child in me, the one who was still starving, took over. I dialed my father. It rang 4 times. I almost hung up thinking he might be busy, but then the line clicked open. "Make it quick, Maya," my father said. There was no hello. The background noise was deafening. I could hear the distinct heavy bass of a live DJ, the clatter of glasses and the roar of dozens of conversations happening at once. It sounded expensive. It sounded like a party that had already been going on for hours. "Dad," I said, my voice catching in my throat. "I need you to step outside for a second. I have news." "I cannot step outside," he said, his voice loud to compete with the music. "We are toasting. Vanessa just ordered another round of Dom Perignon for the head table. Do you know how much a bottle of that stuff costs? More than your monthly housing allowance." "Dad, listen," I said, pressing the phone harder against my ear, trying to block out the noise of his world so he could hear mine. I just got off the phone with Congress. There was a pause. The noise on his end did not stop, but his breathing shifted. "Congress?" he asked. "Like a subpoena? Did you get in trouble? Is this about that mission they were investigating?" "No, Dad," I said, closing my eyes. "Congress, as in the United States Congress. They are awarding me the Congressional Gold Medal. The Speaker is going to present it personally." I waited. I held my breath. I waited for the gasp. I waited for the shout of joy. I waited for him to tell the room to be quiet, because his daughter had just achieved the impossible. "Oh," he said. The word fell flat like a wet towel dropping onto a tile floor. "A medal. Is that the promotion you were talking about last month?" "It is not a promotion, Dad," I said, trying to keep the desperation out of my voice. "It is Congress's highest civilian honor. It requires an act of Congress, signed by the President. Rosa Parks got one. The Navajo Code Talkers got one. The astronauts who walked on the moon got one." "Right. Right," he said, and I could hear him distracted, his attention drifting away to something happening in the room. "So it is a ceremony thing, then. Good photo op, I assume. Press coverage." I felt a crack form in my chest. It is not about the photo op. It is about the recognition. It is about what I did to earn it. Look, Maya, he interrupted, and his tone shifted to that patronizing cadence he used when he thought I was being overly emotional about my career. You are making it sound like you won an Oscar. It is a government award. You wear a uniform. They give you a medal. You hang it on your wall. It is validation. That is good for you. You like validation. It is not validation, I whispered. It is the highest honor the nation can give. You know what is an honor, he countered, his voice rising with excitement. But not for me. What Vanessa just did for your brother, that is an honor. I stared at the wall of my office. What did Vanessa do? She gave him a partnership stake, my father said, and I could hear the smirk in his voice. In her company, 15% equity. He did not even have to ask. She just announced it at the party, in front of everyone. She put his name on the masthead. That is generous, Dad, I said. Generous? He laughed, a harsh barking sound. Maya, that stake is valued at $8 million. That is more than you will make in your entire military career. Hell, that is probably more than you will make in your entire life, even with this new medal. The number hit me like a physical slap. $8 million. He had memorized the valuation. He recited it with reverence, as if the dollar amount was a measure of Marcus's worth as a person. It is a wonderful gift, I said, my voice turning mechanical. It is not a gift, he corrected me. It is a statement. That is what success looks like. Maya, you are over there chasing medals, risking your life, working in danger zones to get a nod from some politicians in Washington. Meanwhile, Marcus is standing here worth $8 million on paper, and he did not have to fire a single shot to get it. The air in my office felt suddenly thin. I could not breathe. Are you saying, I asked slowly, that his equity stake is a bigger achievement than a Congressional Gold Medal? I am saying, he said, dropping his voice to a conspiratorial whisper as if he were teaching me a hard truth about the world, that you picked the service and Marcus picked the partner. And if you look at the balance sheet, Maya, that is the real win. He is set for life. You are going to be deployed until you are broken. There it was, the thesis of the Sterling family legacy. Sacrifice was for fools. Marriage was the goal. If you had to earn your recognition, you had already lost. I looked down at the hand that had been trembling with joy moments ago. Now it was perfectly still. The shaking had stopped, replaced by a cold, heavy numbness. I see, I said. Anyway, he said, his attention snapping back to the party as the music swelled. We are busy. The engagement party is still going, and your mother is losing her mind over the seating arrangements for the wedding. When is this medal thing? Next month, I said. But I will send you the dates. If you are too busy with the wedding, I understand. I can go alone. I threw the line out. A final desperate test. Tell me you will be there. Tell me you will make time. He laughed. You go alone everywhere, Maya. You are used to being independent. You thrive on it. We will try to make it. But honestly, with the wedding planning and Vanessa taking us to her family's compound in the Hamptons afterwards, the schedule is tight. Just send us the pictures. We will frame one for the hallway. Okay, I said. I will send pictures. Hold on, he shouted, turning away from the phone. Vanessa is standing up. She is making another announcement. I heard the cheer of the crowd rise up like a wave. I heard the distinct sound of champagne corks popping across a room. I heard my mother shrieking with delight. Here is to the future, my father roared, his voice distant now, directed at the room, not at me, to the Sterlings and the Chens. Dad, I said. The line went dead. He had not even said goodbye. He had hung up to clap. I slowly lowered the phone from my ear. The silence of my office rushed back in, but it felt different now. Before it was the silence of anticipation. Now it was the silence of a tomb. I walked over to the window and looked out at the Pentagon courtyard. I could see the memorial from here. It was a profound, somber space, a place of sacrifice and remembrance. That was my world. That was my home. And in that moment, standing there with the dial tone still echoing in my mind, I realized something profound. My father was wrong. He thought the equity stake was success because it had a dollar sign. He thought Vanessa was powerful because she could write checks. He thought I was a servant because I drew a salary from the taxpayers. He had no idea what a Congressional Gold Medal recipient represented. He had no idea that the woman giving out equity stakes like party favors was playing a dangerous game with valuations and investor money. He saw the flash. He did not see the fraud. I did not know it for a fact yet. Not legally, but my instincts, honed by years of analyzing intelligence and reading people in high-stakes situations, pricked at the back of my neck. People who spent money that loudly were usually trying to drown out the sound of something collapsing. I looked at the phone in my hand. I could text him. I could explain that Congressional Gold Medal recipients are honored alongside the greatest heroes in American history. I could explain that the medal itself is designed by the United States Mint specifically for me. I could explain that while Marcus's equity was worth $8 million on paper, the recognition I was about to receive was priceless because it was earned through actions that cannot be bought or sold. But I did not. I put the phone down on my desk. Let them enjoy the champagne. Let them toast to the real success. Let them think I am just a glorified soldier collecting ribbons in a basement. I would not correct them. I would not beg for their attendance. I would not try to explain the magnitude of my honor to people who measured worth in stock options. I would let them stay in the dark because when the lights finally came on, when the music stopped and the hangover set in, I wanted them to see exactly what they had missed. I sat back down in my leather chair. I picked up a pen. I pulled a fresh notepad toward me. And for the first time in my life, I did not write down flight times for my parents or gift ideas for my brother's wedding. I wrote down the date of my ceremony, and next to the line for guests, I wrote a single word: none. Then I went back to work. The heavy double doors of the Capitol Rotunda swung open, and for a moment, the only thing I could register was the blinding white flare of camera flashes. It was like stepping into a lightning storm. The air inside the room was cool and smelled faintly of polished marble and old documents, a scent that had always comforted me, but today it felt sacred. I stepped across the threshold. The master of ceremonies, a congressional aide with a clear voice that seemed to resonate through the dome, stepped up to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen, please rise," she commanded. "The United States Congress presents, for the highest civilian honor of this body, the Congressional Gold Medal to Maya Sterling for extraordinary heroism and service to her nation." She paused for effect, letting the weight of the honor settle over the room before adding the detail that the press had been running with all week. The youngest individual recipient in a generation. The applause was thunderous, sustained, and genuine. It washed over me as I began the long walk down the center aisle. To my left and right, the seats were packed. I saw faces I recognized. Generals I had served under, senators who had sponsored the legislation, the Secretary of Defense looking at me with pride. But my eyes were drawn magnetically, inevitably, to the front row. The layout of the ceremony was designed to honor the support system of the honoree. Directly in front of the podium, closer than the press section, closer than the VIP box, were 4 high-back chairs upholstered in a deep royal blue velvet. They were the best seats in the house. They were reserved for the people who had sacrificed, the people who had nurtured, the people who were supposed to witness the culmination of my service. On each seat, a thick cream-colored card was placed. The calligraphy was elegant and gold, reserved for Sterling family. Empty, 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 empty. They were not just vacant chairs. In that crowded rotunda, they were a crater. The velvet looked pristine, untouched. The pile of the fabric smooth because no anxious parent was shifting their weight on it. No proud brother was leaning forward to take a video. I kept walking. My pace was steady, a rhythm I had practiced in formation. Left, right, left, right. Do not speed up. Do not look down. As I approached the void, I saw a photographer from the Associated Press. He was a veteran, a man I had seen at military ceremonies for years. He knew a story when he saw one. He did not aim his lens at my face. He did not aim at the flag. He dropped to one knee, angling his camera low. I heard the rapid fire shutter of his camera. Click, 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 click. He was framing the shot. Me in my dress uniform, walking in profile past the 4 empty blue chairs with the reserved signs clearly visible in the foreground. I knew with a cold and absolute certainty that this image would define the day. It would not be a picture of triumph. It would be a picture of isolation. It would go viral before the ceremony was even over. I felt a phantom heat on the side of my face as I passed them. It was the heat of humiliation trying to rise up my neck, trying to make me blush, but I suffocated it. I imagined the beach club in Malibu. I imagined my mother's face covered in a cucumber mask. My father holding a glass of sake, laughing at a joke Vanessa made. They were comfortable. They were relaxed. I would not give them the satisfaction of my embarrassment. I reached the front of the room and ascended the steps to the podium. The Speaker of the House was waiting for me. He looked distinguished in his dark suit, holding the medal case with both hands. He smiled at me, a genuine, warm expression that crinkled the corners of his eyes. He leaned in close, covering the microphone with his hand so only I could hear. "You look ready, Maya," he whispered. Then his eyes flickered over my shoulder, scanning the front row, expecting to see beaming parents waving back. His smile faltered. He looked confused. "Your parents? Surely they must be proud today." He was giving me an out. He was assuming they were stuck in traffic or perhaps seated in the back due to a mix-up. He could not conceive of a world where a mother and father would voluntarily miss their daughter receiving the highest civilian honor Congress can bestow. I looked him in the eye. I did not whisper. "They are resting," I said. The Speaker blinked. "Resting?" "Yes," I said, my voice flat. "It has been a very exhausting week for them." He pulled back, unsure how to process the information. He looked at the empty chairs again, then back at me, and a shadow of understanding crossed his face. He was a politician. He had seen families torn apart by success before. "Shall we proceed?" I asked. "Yes, of course." He gestured to the medal case in his hands. It was a custom design, the gold gleaming under the lights of the rotunda. I straightened my posture. I did not need a Bible. I did not need to take an oath. This was not an office. This was recognition. This was the nation saying thank you. But it still felt like a covenant. The Speaker opened the case. Inside, the Congressional Gold Medal caught the light. It was heavy, substantial, and permanent. "This medal," the Speaker said, his voice filling the rotunda, "is Congress's highest expression of national appreciation for distinguished achievements and contributions to the United States. It is awarded to those whose acts have an impact on American history and culture that is likely to be recognized as a major achievement in the recipient's field for generations." He turned to face me directly. "Maya Sterling, you led a mission that saved 47 lives, including 12 American citizens. You did so at great personal risk. You did so without hesitation. You did so because that is who you are." He lifted the medal from its case. "The nation thanks you." I reached out and took the medal in my hands. It was heavier than I expected. The gold was warm from the lights. I looked down at it for a moment, then looked up at the 400 strangers who showed up when my own blood did not. I am alone. Yes, but as my fingers closed around the medal, I realized that being alone meant there was no one to diminish this moment. I was Maya Sterling. I was honored by my nation. And that was enough. To understand why I stood alone in that rotunda, you have to understand the economics of the Sterling household. The divide between Marcus and me was not just about attention. It was about value. And the final calculation was made clear during the Sunday dinners that continued even as I rose through the ranks. My achievements were noted. They were acknowledged. But they were never celebrated. Meanwhile, Marcus's romantic progress was treated like a NASDAQ ticker. Every update on Vanessa was discussed with the intensity of a board meeting. When I was deployed to a combat zone, my mother sent a text that read, "Be safe. Don't forget to moisturize. The desert ages you." When Marcus sent flowers to Vanessa, my parents hosted a dinner to discuss whether roses were too traditional and whether he should have sent peonies instead. The calculus was simple and brutal. My career was a cost center. Marcus's relationship was a profit center. I remember one dinner in particular. I had just returned from a mission that remained classified. I was exhausted, jet-lagged, and carrying the weight of things I could not discuss. But I showed up because I always showed up. "So how are things in the military?" my mother asked, passing the breadbasket. I was just promoted, I said quietly. I am leading my own unit now. That is nice, she said, not looking up from her plate. Is it more money? A little. I hope you are saving. Government pensions are not what they used to be. My father was already turned toward Marcus. Son, Vanessa's parents are having that gala next month. Have you decided what you are wearing? I sat there, invisible, and made a decision. I stopped seeking their approval. I stopped reporting my achievements. I stopped expecting them to care. When I called them about the Congressional Gold Medal, I already knew what would happen. But I called anyway because some part of me, some childish, hopeful part, thought that maybe this time would be different. This was the highest honor. This was history. This would be the thing that finally made them see me. I was wrong. And when my father hung up to toast Vanessa's announcement, I felt the last thread of hope snap. It was clean. It was final. It was almost a relief. The ceremony had ended. The rotunda was beginning to empty. I was standing near the podium, shaking hands with senators and generals, accepting congratulations from people whose names I would have to look up later. The medal was still in my hands. I had not let go of it since the speaker placed it there. My phone was still off. I had not turned it back on since the morning. I did not need to. I knew what was waiting for me. Somewhere in California, my family was finishing their wellness day. They were probably getting massages or sitting in a sauna, talking about how Marcus's wedding was going to be the event of the season. They were not thinking about me. They were not watching the news. They were not checking their phones to see if maybe, just maybe, I had been recognized for something that mattered. But that was about to change. 3,000 miles away from the solemnity of the Capitol Rotunda, the sun was beating down on the Malibu Beach Club with the kind of aggressive brightness that wealthy people mistake for happiness. It was one of those places where the sand was raked every hour. The water was chemically balanced to a perfect turquoise, and the air smelled of coconut oil and ambition. My family was sitting at a prime cabana near the infinity pool. The table in front of them was groaning under the weight of a seafood tower that stood 3 tiers high. There were oysters, lobster tails, and king crab legs that had been cracked open by staff so that Vanessa would not have to risk chipping her manicure. Vanessa Chen sat at the head of the table. She was wearing designer sunglasses that cost more than a month of my housing allowance, and a silk cover-up that was unbuttoned to show off skin that had seen more spa treatments than sunlight. She held court with the casual arrogance of a woman who believes the world is a vending machine that only accepts her currency. "More champagne," Vanessa shouted, snapping her fingers at a passing waiter. She did not look at the server. She just pointed at the empty bottle of Dom Perignon. "And keep them coming. We are celebrating growth." My father David laughed. It was a loud, wet sound greased by alcohol and the thrill of proximity to money. He leaned back in his teak chair, adjusting his designer sunglasses. "That is right," David said, gesturing grandly with his glass. "Growth, expansion. You know, right now, at this exact second, poor Maya is probably standing in some dusty government building, waiting for a politician to pin a ribbon on her chest. My mother, Christine, was reapplying sunscreen to her shoulders." She paused to giggle. "Oh, stop it, David. You make it sound so dreary. I am sure they have air conditioning. But honestly, can you imagine standing at attention in a wool uniform on a day like this? It must be suffocating." She always did prefer the hard way. "She likes the structure," Marcus chimed in, sipping his champagne. "Maya loves being told what to do. The military is perfect for her. She can just follow orders and get little medals for it. But it is so limited, you know. No equity, no upside, just a salary and a pension. Government work," Vanessa agreed, but her tone was dismissive. "Noble, I suppose, but no scalability, no leverage. Look at this." She pulled a black metal credit card from her clutch and tossed it onto the table. It landed with a heavy, authoritative clatter next to the lobster shells. "That is leverage," Vanessa said. "Limitless." David stared at the card like it was a holy relic. He reached out and touched the corner of it with his index finger. "Incredible," my father breathed. "You have done well, Vanessa. You have done very well. This is what I always wanted for my children. Security. Real security." "Maya has security," Christine said, waving her hand. "But she does not have freedom. That is the difference. Marcus has freedom." Marcus preened, adjusting his designer polo. I wish Maya could see this, though, just so she could understand what she is missing. She probably thinks we are terrible for skipping her little ceremony. We are not skipping it, David said, pouring himself more champagne. We are prioritizing family wellness. Besides, she is a big girl. She survived war zones. She can accept a medal alone. Cheers to that. They clinked glasses, the crystal ringing out in the hot afternoon air. They were drunk on sunshine and self-satisfaction, completely unaware that the ground beneath them was about to shift. Then Vanessa's phone buzzed. It was lying face up on the table next to the black card. The screen lit up. It was not a text from an investor. It was not a congratulatory message from a board member. It was a news alert. The headline read, Congressional Gold Medal Ceremony. Maya Sterling honored in Capitol Rotunda. Family absent from front row. Vanessa's eyes scanned the headline. She did not react visibly, but something shifted behind her designer sunglasses. She swiped the alert away quickly, but not quickly enough. Above the bar, a large flat-screen television was playing CNN. The volume was low, drowned out by the ambient lounge music, but the image was crisp, and on the screen, filling the frame, was the Capitol Rotunda. The ceremony was being broadcast live. The chyron at the bottom of the screen was bright red. Congressional Gold Medal. Maya Sterling becomes youngest individual recipient in a generation. David froze, his champagne glass tilted, spilling Dom Perignon onto his linen shorts. But he did not feel the cold liquid. He stared at the words. Congressional Gold Medal. His brain, usually quick to calculate social status, ground to a halt. The Congressional Gold Medal. That was not a participation trophy. That was not a volunteer recognition plaque. That was the same honor given to George Washington, to Rosa Parks, to the Apollo 11 astronauts. He looked at the screen. The camera was panning across the rotunda. There were senators in the audience. There was the Secretary of Defense. There was the Speaker of the House. And there, walking toward the podium in her dress uniform, looking like something carved from marble, was Maya, his daughter, his dismissed, overlooked, undervalued daughter. Hey, Marcus said, oblivious to the atmosphere. Look, it is Maya. She is on TV. Oh, wow, she looks so serious. Look at that posture. I told her to relax more. Christine looked up from her phone where she had been scrolling through spa appointments. She squinted at the screen. Well, look at that, Christine said, her voice uncertain. She actually went through with it. Congressional Gold Medal. That sounds important. David was not responding. He watched the footage. He saw the camera pan to the empty chairs in the front row. He saw the reserved signs clearly visible. He saw his daughter accept the highest civilian honor Congress can bestow. Alone. The speaker is shaking her hand, Marcus said, sounding confused now. Dad, why is the Speaker of the House shaking her hand? Because, David said slowly, his voice hollow, that is what happens when you receive the Congressional Gold Medal. Oh, Christine breathed, finally understanding. The word was small and lost. That is what this was. That is the ceremony. She turned to look at David. Her face was pale beneath her tan. We missed it. We missed the Congressional Gold Medal. Vanessa sat very still. She was watching the screen with an expression that was difficult to read. For the first time since David had met her, she looked uncertain. That is quite an honor, Vanessa said quietly. Yes, David whispered. His throat was dry. Yes, it is. On screen, the speaker was placing the medal in Maya's hands. The camera zoomed in on the medal itself. It was gold, custom designed, gleaming under the lights of the rotunda. It was heavy with history, and Maya was holding it alone. David stared at the television. He stared at the daughter he had dismissed as just a soldier. He stared at the woman he had overlooked for years while investing everything in Marcus's romantic prospects. We should have been there, Christine whispered. Her hands were shaking. We should have been in those seats. Those empty chairs. That is us. That is what we did. David could not speak. He watched Maya shake hands with senators. He watched generals salute her. He watched the most powerful people in government treat his daughter with a respect he had never shown her. And in that moment, standing in the harsh California sun, surrounded by champagne and shellfish, David Sterling finally understood the true cost of his investment strategy. He had bet everything on the wrong child, and the receipt was those 4 empty chairs, broadcast on national television for the world to see. The aftermath came in waves. The first wave was the photograph. It hit the internet within hours of the ceremony. The Associated Press photographer had captured exactly the shot he wanted. Maya Sterling in her dress uniform, walking past 4 empty chairs with reserved for Sterling family clearly visible on the cards. The image went viral. It was shared millions of times within 24 hours. The headlines wrote themselves. American hero stands alone. Parents skip Congressional Gold Medal ceremony for beach vacation. The contrast was devastating. On one side, a woman being honored for saving 47 lives. On the other, 4 empty seats that spoke louder than any words. The second wave was the investigation. Maya had not expected it. She had returned to her office at the Pentagon, placed her medal on her desk, and tried to go back to work. She was reading through intelligence briefs when her commanding officer called her in. "Sterling," he said, closing the door to his office. "Have you seen the news? The ceremony?" Everyone saw the ceremony. "I mean the other news. The investigation." Maya frowned. "What investigation?" "Chen Dynamics. Your brother's fiancé's company. The SEC announced this morning. Apparently they have been investigating her for months. Securities fraud. Investor deception. The whole company is built on inflated valuations and falsified user data." Maya sat down slowly. Her mind was racing. The equity stake. Her brother's $8 million partnership. "It is worthless," the commander continued. "The stock is going to crater. Anyone who invested based on her projections is going to lose everything. And from what I understand, your family made some financial decisions based on her promises." Maya thought of her parents. She thought of the champagne toast. She thought of her father's smug voice telling her that Marcus had found real success. "How bad is it?" Maya asked. "Bad enough that your brother might be considered a material witness. Bad enough that your parents could be caught up in the civil litigation if they signed anything. Bad enough that Vanessa Chen is probably going to face criminal charges." Maya looked down at her hands. They were steady. The same hands that had led combat missions. The same hands that had saved lives. The same hands that had held the Congressional Gold Medal. "Is there anything I can do?" Maya asked. "For them? You could call them. Give them legal guidance. Help them find a lawyer who handles this kind of thing." Maya thought about it. She thought about the empty chairs. She thought about the text message. She thought about every missed moment. Every dismissive comment. Every time they had chosen Marcus over her. "I could," Maya said. "But I will not." The commander nodded slowly. He understood. The third wave came 3 months later. Maya was not there to witness it, but she knew exactly how it unfolded. She had seen the news reports. She had read the court filings. She had chosen not to reach out. The SEC had moved with devastating efficiency. Vanessa Chen was arrested at her office in San Francisco. The footage showed federal agents escorting her out in handcuffs, her designer clothes suddenly looking like a costume. Her confident smile replaced by the panicked expression of a woman who had finally run out of moves. Marcus was questioned as part of the investigation. He was not charged. He was merely a dupe, rather than a co-conspirator. But his equity stake evaporated overnight. The $8 million his father had bragged about became worth less than the paper it was printed on. And David and Christine Sterling watched their dreams of wealth through marriage collapse in real time. They had refinanced their house based on Vanessa's promises. They had invested their retirement savings based on her projections. They had bet everything on Marcus finding the right partner. The partner turned out to be a fraud. And the daughter they dismissed turned out to be a Congressional Gold Medal recipient. Maya learned all of this through official channels and news reports. She did not call. She did not text. She did not reach out. Why would she? They had made their choice. They had chosen a spa day over history. They had chosen champagne over honor. They had chosen Marcus over Maya. And now they were living with the consequences. 6 months after the ceremony, Maya received a letter. It was handwritten, which was unusual. It was from her mother. "Dear Maya, we saw the ceremony on television. We did not understand what we were missing until we saw those empty chairs. We have tried to call you. We have tried to reach out. You do not answer. I understand why. We were wrong. We were so wrong. About everything. About Vanessa. About Marcus. About you. Your father cries at night. He watches the footage of your ceremony on his phone. He watches you accept that medal alone. He knows what he did. We both do. We lost everything. The house is gone. Our savings are gone. Marcus is living in our guest room because his apartment was funded by Vanessa. We have nothing left except regret. But that is not why I am writing. I am not asking for money. I am not asking for help. I am just asking for a chance to tell you in person how sorry we are. A chance to see your medal. A chance to be there, even if it is too late. I know we do not deserve it, but I am asking anyway, because I am your mother, and I was wrong, and I am sorry. Love, Mom. Maya read the letter twice. Then she folded it carefully and placed it in a drawer. She did not respond. Not because she was cruel, not because she wanted revenge, but because she had learned something important in those months of silence. Some bridges are not meant to be rebuilt. Some lessons are only learned through loss. And some daughters, the ones who were dismissed and overlooked and told they were choosing the hard path, those daughters sometimes choose to walk that path alone. Maya Sterling looked at the letter in her drawer. She looked at the Congressional Gold Medal on her desk. She looked at the woman she had become. And she went back to work. 1 year after the ceremony, Maya was sitting in her new office. She had been promoted again, this time to a position that put her in direct contact with policymakers and military leadership. Her medal sat in a glass case on her bookshelf, next to photos of her unit and commendations from grateful families whose loved ones she had saved. Her phone buzzed. A text from Marcus. Maya, please. I know I have no right to ask, but Dad is sick. He has been in the hospital for a week. The doctors say it is stress-related. He keeps asking for you. He keeps saying your name. I know we were terrible. I know we chose wrong. I know we missed your moment. But he is dying, Maya. And his last request is to see you. One time. Just one time. To tell you he is sorry. To see your medal. To finally be there. Please. Maya stared at the message for a long time. She thought about the empty chairs. She thought about the spa day. She thought about every birthday they forgot. Every promotion they dismissed. Every achievement they minimized. She thought about the letter from her mother that she never answered. She thought about the 47 people she saved. She thought about the medal in the glass case. She thought about what honor meant. And then Maya Sterling, Congressional Gold Medal recipient, youngest individual honoree in a generation, made her choice. She typed 3 words. I am coming. She pressed send, and then she picked up her medal, put it in her pocket, and walked out the door. The hospital room was small and white and smelled like antiseptic. David Sterling lay in the bed, looking decades older than his years. His face was gaunt, his hands trembling on the sheets. Christine sat beside him, her own face lined with worry and regret. Marcus stood by the window, unable to meet Maya's eyes. Maya walked in. She was wearing civilian clothes, but she carried herself like a soldier. The medal was in her pocket, heavy, present. The room went silent. David looked up. His eyes, cloudy with medication and illness, focused on his daughter. He tried to sit up. He failed. Tears began streaming down his face. Maya, he whispered. You came. I came, Maya said. She walked to his bedside. She stood there, looking down at the man who had dismissed her for 28 years. I am sorry, David choked out. I am so sorry. I was wrong. About everything. About you. About your service. About what matters. I watched that ceremony 100 times. Those empty chairs. That was me. That was my failure. Not yours. Never yours. Maya said nothing. She reached into her pocket. She pulled out the medal. She held it up so he could see it. It caught the light, gleaming gold against the white hospital walls. David reached out a trembling hand. May I? He whispered. Maya placed the medal in his palm. It was heavy, substantial, real. David held it like it was sacred, because it was. This is what I missed, he said. This is what we threw away for a spa day. He looked up at his daughter. His eyes were clearer now, focused by grief and regret. You earned this. You did something that mattered, and I was too blind to see it. Maya looked at her father, at the man who had failed her, at the man who had finally, too late, understood. I did not come here for an apology, Maya said quietly. I came because you asked, because despite everything, you are still my father, and because I learned something in my service. I learned that sometimes mercy is not about what people deserve. Sometimes it is about who you want to be. She paused. I am choosing to be someone who shows up, even when others did not show up for me. David began to sob. Christine was crying. Even Marcus, by the window, had tears running down his face. Maya reached down and took her father's hand, the hand that had never applauded her, the hand that had waved away her achievements, the hand that was now holding her medal like a lifeline. Rest now, Maya said. I am here. And for the first time in 28 years, she was not alone, because she had chosen not to be. The next morning, David Sterling passed away. He died with the Congressional Gold Medal resting on his chest, held in his daughter's hands. The photo that ran in the local paper was not of the funeral. It was not of the grief. It was of Maya Sterling, standing at attention by her father's grave, saluting the man who had finally, in his last moments, learned to see her. The caption read, American hero buries father who missed her moment. But Maya knew the truth was more complicated than any headline could capture. She had not forgiven them because they deserved it. She had forgiven them because she deserved peace. She had shown up not because they had earned her presence, but because she had earned the right to choose grace. And in the end, that was the greatest honor of all. Not the medal from Congress, not the recognition from generals, but the knowledge that she had become someone worth being, someone who could stand alone when necessary, and someone who could choose to stand with others when the time was right. Maya Sterling touched the medal in her pocket one last time. Then she walked away from the grave, back toward her life, back toward her service, back toward the future she had built with her own hands. Behind her, the 4 seats at the funeral were full. Her mother, her brother, 2 friends from her unit. They had finally shown up. It was too late, but it was something. And sometimes Maya thought, something is enough. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I would love to know where you are tuning in from. So please drop a comment below with your location and share your thoughts on whether you think Maya made the right choice to forgive in the end. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to the channel, like this video, and hit the notification bell to help this story get heard by more people.